Yeah, the
I
bananas.
know we
Yeah, they
said
came
we're
in
gonna
today.
meet after that, but
I don't know.
I
I
think
don't know how
Saturday
many.
will work better.
Whenever my wife and I get into a loud screaming match, I like to make sure that I scream loud enough for the kids to hear. In fact, sometimes I actually have them stand around and listen to us yell.
They say that love will build a bridge, but love won't build a tunnel under his insecurities, or fly an airplane over his lack of communication, or a rocket ship to avoid his bad breath in the morning. Some things love will never build.
Marriage is a holy union, so that's why I'm married to my work as well as my iPhone.
My husband and I struggle with our finances. But there's an entire struggling economy out there in need of stimulation. I charge more than I can afford for the good of this country.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on?
We get it everywhere. I mean, we get our marriage advice all over, don't we? And like we said last week, man, it is very important for us to see what the Bible has to say about marriage. Because each and every one of us are either have been around it, we've grown up in it, or we are right in the middle of it, or someday we will be married, and we have to see what good God-like principles look like. And so listen, a couple quick things you need to know, house cleaning things, housekeeping, I guess, is that if you do not have one of these marriage booklets, this is how you follow along and stay awake, all right? This is it right here. Is Carrie here somewhere? Carrie is right there. Carrie is amazing. Carrie, if you do not have a booklet, every one of you need to have a booklet, young or old. You can follow along. Lift your hand. Just simply put it up. And Carrie will walk around and make sure that you have a booklet. These things are incredible. Carrie put these together. On the inside cover, yes, you can give her hugs later. She loves hugs. On the inside, that's how we pay her, by the way, is in hugs. But on the inside booklet, there is a place that was for you to sign it and say, hey, I'm willing to be a part of this. I want to see what God will tell me about marriage. Also, there is a place for you and your spouse to sign it together and say, let's do this together. If you are serving, like several are right now with your kids back there, they have signed it and said, you know what, during the week we'll watch this together. Somebody came up to me and said, we're watching it together just to, I guess, get a gold star or whatever. But I said, yes, that's what I'm talking about. Make the commitment together, because does your marriage matter? Yes, it does. It's the second biggest decision you have made or will ever make in your life on deciding who you will marry. First one being coming to know the Lord, of course. Now, how about you? Let me ask you this question. You ever been to one of the best weddings ever? Like you were at the wedding, you were sitting there, you were invited, you sat down and thought, they spent thousands for this. Unbelievable. I mean, horse-drawn carriage for the bride to come up. She gets out. Everybody, I mean, you're looking around, you're thinking, this is awesome, this wedding. And you come home and you tell your spouse or you tell a friend, it was the most amazing wedding I've ever seen. And the wedding ends up in a train wreck, the marriage. And you wonder how in the world, after something so beautiful, that it ends up in a train wreck. And we've seen it, don't we see it? We've seen it with our family, maybe. We've seen it with our friends. We've definitely seen it on TV, right? Yeah, they've done full specials on weddings. And then just months later, maybe a year or two later, it ends up in a train wreck. Well, how does that happen? How does something, as we would say, so right go so wrong? Why is it that so many marriages start off as an ideal and pretty soon turn into an ordeal? Pretty soon, both partners are looking for what? A new deal. Why is it 6 months into a marriage, a lot of people have what we call buyer's remorse? We ask the question, what did I get myself into? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about working through, last week, remember what we said? We said we're going to work through this idea that, man, we're just not compatible then. Maybe it's just not going to work out. We said we're going to work through that. I want to read this letter to you because it may sound familiar to you. Dear Pastor, I don't understand what's happened to my marriage. What seems to be so right before we got married has turned out very, very wrong. I'm wondering if I've missed God's will. My marriage is not at all what I thought it was going to be. I know everybody has problems, but I thought because I was a Christian that my marriage would be different. Before we got married, we thought we had a lot in common. But it is now very clear that we have very little in common, especially since my spouse doesn't care about growing spiritually like I do. Another thing that bugs me is our love life. Before we got married, we decided to live together, to check each other out sexually. That was a big mistake. I've now learned that how someone responds while being unmarried is no guarantee at all of how they will respond when committed for life to a marriage. Within a year after we got married, my spouse lost all interest in sex. The thrill was replaced with guilt and fear. I now feel ripped off. I feel cheated and the victim of a bait and switch scam. It isn't fair, and I'm angry, and I'm hurt, and I'm frustrated. I keep wondering if maybe the person God wanted me to marry is still out there somewhere. I fantasize about other people I might have married, and I'm constantly comparing my spouse to others. Maybe I should just divorce and start searching again. All I'm sure of is this, though. I'm deeply disappointed in my marriage, and I don't know what to do, Pastor. Can you please tell me what went wrong? That letter sound familiar? Maybe us, maybe a friend who's explained that to you, a family member who's called you at 2 a.m., said it wasn't what they thought it would be. Last week we dealt with the myth that there's the one and only. That God somewhere out there has the one and only for you, and right now it's not working for you right now, so the one and only is still out there somewhere, and we said that is a myth. It's not biblical. That God does not prepare for you from the foundation of the world this one unique partner. But what God does prepare for you are great principles and great guidelines for you to live by and for you to search for your spouse by. God is very clear about the kind of person He doesn't want you to marry. Very clear about that. He says here are some parameters of the kind of person I want you to marry and the one I don't want you to marry. And if you marry within these parameters, life is going to be a whole lot easier. But today, as you know, as I know, we're all human beings. And we're sinners. That's what the Bible tells us. Whether you like that word or not, you're in church. And the truth is that we were born that way. We're born to be sinners. And we make mistakes. We do stupid things. We make dumb decisions. And sometimes we blatantly just disobey God. We blatantly disobey what He tells us will be best for us. Maybe you've done that and you didn't marry within the parameters that God laid out for you. Maybe you didn't even know Him about that. What do we do if we married the wrong person? Or what do we do if we married for the wrong reason? Should I get a divorce? God says no. Absolutely not. You stay with the one you've married, and I'm going to change you. And I'm going to change the person if they'll let me. And it's going to be a marriage miracle. You don't have to go out and find someone new. You made a vow, God says. You did it in front of me, and you did it in front of a bunch of other people. And you said, I'm in it to win it. And He expects us to keep it, doesn't He? See, God wants us to do something different. He wants to create the marriage that you wanted if you'll let Him change you. And if you'll let Him change your spouse. And He's saying, I could do something you never thought possible. So buckle up today. Get your booklets out, grab your pen, follow along with me. All the verses you'll hear today will be in your booklet. One thing we got to know about God is that God's plan for you, God's plan for your marriage is not a static plan. It's a dynamic plan. We've heard the word dynamic all the time, right? Oh, she is so dynamic. When he comes up and gives his speeches about the pet food, he's up there, and it's so dynamic to see. What does that word even mean when someone's dynamic? It's active, it's flowing, it's moving, it's adjusting, and it's just alive. You ever just saw a swamp? We were just in Florida, and there was like swamp stuff everywhere, and it's just sitting there. And it's ugly. But what about a river that's flowing? Don't we call that dynamic? And each one of us would rather be in one or the other, isn't that right? We don't want to be in a swamp. We want to be in the river. We want to see the fish swimming around, and the brook, and the water, and the pretty rocks. That's God's plan for us. The dynamic plan. It's not a static swamp. See, God's will, God's plan, God's purpose for your life is energy. In other words, it's not cast in concrete, it's moving. See, God takes into account our mistakes when He's planning our lives. He takes into account our foolish choices. When we make a bad choice and when we make a dumb decision and when we maybe marry a person that we shouldn't have married in the first place, God says, okay, well, I wouldn't have chosen that for you, but I am going to work with that. And that could just be in everything, right? When we didn't make the right decision, God from Romans 8:28 says, but you know what? I will work with that if you will let me as we move forward. You see, I'm so glad personally that one mistake doesn't mean I've missed God's plan for the entire rest of my life. Aren't you glad for that yourself? Aren't you glad that God's plan is dynamic and it's flowing and He works even with our mistakes? Otherwise, one mistake would shut the whole thing down, wouldn't it? I just went to Florida with my kids. Can you imagine if I would have let, or Christy would have let one mistake from our kids shut everything down? We were in Denny's before we even went anywhere that night when we got home, and Trey was acting a fool in there. And if I would have said, oh, no, this is it. No, back on the plane. I'm paying the $2,000. Let's go home. Are you kidding me? But what do? Okay, let's adjust the plan a little bit. I'm going to adjust it on his backside, which I did. But I'm just going to tell you, the plan adjusted. The bathroom, went into the bathroom, came back out, and guess what? We're back on schedule for the trip that it was meant to be. And we laugh, we say, man, come on. Let me just tell you, God's doing the same thing with us. That He's got a journey for us, doesn't He? And He has a great destination. He has a magic kingdom for us waiting. But we make errors. And I'm so glad it just isn't one error that shuts the whole thing down. It's what we call grace. When I disobey God and when you disobey God, when I don't do what He says, when you don't do what He says, when I make stupid decisions, when we make stupid decisions, the result is more pain. It is more grief. It is more heartache. It is more problems. It is more pressures. It is more hassles. It's all kinds of things that are unnecessary for our life. But God can even bring good out of bad. Can I get an amen? God can bring good out of anything that we give Him. The things we keep from Him, He cannot. But the things we give Him, He will. We're going to have problems. We're going to have more pain than if we had done it His way. But God can bring out even anything. Out of all the bad, He can bring out good. Even out of our dumb decisions. I want to talk to you today about what goes wrong in marriage, though. Having visited years and years of ministry, being in youth ministry, which was probably the best place I could be to see marriages, being a senior pastor now and looking over marriages, I think most of us can come to some conclusions why marriages go sour, why marriages fall apart, and at the least, there's just a few reasons that we can talk about today. I'm going to start them right here. How about the first one? Unresolved issues. We get into marriage with unresolved issues. These are the things that cause us to doubt and second guess and feel like we married the wrong person. These are things, newsflash, these are things that you brought into the marriage. These are things you brought into the marriage from previous relationships, and especially from the family you grew up in. When you got married, you brought a lot of baggage into your marriage, and so did your spouse. You didn't come into the marriage just blank slates, great wedding, perfect, everything, and then the next day it was blank. Guess what? You brought into the marriage unresolved issues. And the more pain you grew up with, the more baggage that you've got to deal with, the more unresolved issues. A lot of people get into marriage and they think the marriage is creating all these problems. You know what marriage does? It reveals problems. There are issues that need to be dealt with, and let's just be real. If you decided to live alone for the rest of your life, those issues they'll never be dealt with. But when you get close and personal with someone else who you call your husband or your wife that you chose to marry, they begin to see all the intimate details of your life, not just of the time that you said yes from the podium. They see your quirks and they say, let's work on you, don't they? And your idea is, I don't want anybody to work on me. You say, I want to work on you. And that's what we call conflict. Isn't that right? You see, the best way to prepare for marriage if you're unmarried and you want to get married is to deal with your past. Get some closure. Make peace with your parents. Have an honest look at your family background. But what do? We defend and we deny. And we don't deal with it. And it's unresolved. It is the single greatest reason marriages go south. Unresolved issues. Second one, how about this? Unmet expectations. What you got into, right? I don't know any area of life where we set ourselves up with higher expectations. Reason why? Because Hollywood sets us up for this. We watch it nonstop from the time I just came from Magic Kingdom with Snow White, Prince Charming, all these people running around, dancing in the streets. And then I watch them go back behind, and the young ones, theater, go behind the curtain, and they're just like, whoa, man, that was, it's like, what? What are you talking? Okay, they weren't smoking, but you get my drift. Okay? They're like, they're not, what do you mean? They just showed me this. What we see expectations of the Prince Charming coming in and sweeping the fair maiden off her feet. And they ride off into this amazing sunset. And we just watch it all over TV. That's why Christy and I, we won't watch those movies. We're not watching, I'm not going to watch any movies that has The Rock in it. Okay? Nothing with Tyrese. No Chris Daughtry videos. Okay? Something about his bald head, maybe something better than mine, I don't know. We're not doing it. Now, we will watch shows like King of Queens. Okay, King of Queens is perfect to watch. Sleeping with the Enemy, those movies. See, those are perfect. Those are perfect. But you get my drift is that we watch these shows and these movies, and it sets us up for unmet expectations. If we're real today, nobody's going to come to your house on a white horse. It's not reality, it's fantasy. Even the way we set up the process in American culture of dating and courtship and engagement and wedding and honeymoon, right? They're extravagant. I'm sorry. Hey, I love you guys to death, but hey, this is getting real right in here, isn't it, Chloe? And John, you guys are like, you are a jerk if I've ever known it. I'm going to tell you right now, I've never been to a better wedding and reception than my own. I never have. I'm serious. I've never been to one. I've been to a million weddings, and I've never been to one. We're up there, and when I proposed to Christy, I played the music, A Moment Like This. Remember that jam? Kelly Clarkson does A Moment Like This. And I'm playing it loud through my speakers. And it's playing. Well, a girl who sang beautiful voice sang that song at our wedding. It was beautiful. One of the guys, mixed couple, yeah, of course. A mixed couple saying Unforgettable, Nat King Cole. It was beautiful. She comes down, I'm crying, people snapping pictures. We have old youth groups, new church, old church, hundreds of people there, right? Then we go on to this reception where we have literally people ready to dance. Like it was like, yeah, when people come on the floor, make it fun. We had hundreds of people dancing in this whole, you remember, Jackie, you remember the wedding? It was super fun. Never been to a wedding better than my own, right? Honeymoon. Wow. Next day, drove, told you the story, forget about that. But we actually get to Cancun. And I mean, it's all inclusive, right? All the food I want. I'm thinking, wow. I mean, she is beautiful. You know my wife. She's just sweet. She's beautiful. This is amazing. That was 2 days, right? 4 days later, we get, it's like 5 days, we finally get home. She's going to make me my favorite meal, fried chicken. Took her 4 days to make. I'm thinking like, dancing in the streets. This was amazing, all-inclusive food whenever I wanted, and I'm waiting for fried chicken for 4 days. I'm like, what in the world is this? This is what marriage is? But guess what? That's what is set up for us. Unmet expectations. I think each and every one of us have our own stories, how it fast forwards, and it's like not what we thought it was. But unmet expectations cause the marriages to go south. Underestimated differences. We underestimate the differences that we have. God wired us. I mean, think about the differences that we have. He's got a sense of humor. She doesn't have a sense of humor. How many of you are early risers? How many of you, your spouse, they don't even believe in God until 11 a.m.? We're different. Some of you are daring and impulsive. Some of you are cautious and reserved. Some of you are thinking, you said opposites don't attract. You know what I do know is that God has a good sense of humor of completing us. You ever seen Jerry Maguire? She's in the elevator. What does she say to him? You complete me. Well, we looked at Tom Cruise the whole movie and thought he was a jerk, right? What part of him completed her? Well, she must have just needed a little bit of completion. But that's what we say, don't we? God works it out. But we underestimate the differences that we have. And what do we say? We have so much in common when we're dating. No, you don't. No, you don't. You've underestimated the differences that you have, and you've overestimated what you have in common. And we won't make changes in the marriage. Last one, unforgiven mistakes. Unforgiven mistakes make a marriage go wrong. You cannot have marriage unless you learn forgiveness. I'm just going to tell you that today. If you're sitting here today and you're thinking you have the perfect marriage and you don't know forgiveness, you're lying to yourself and your spouse is lying to you. Sometimes intentionally we make mistakes. Sometimes accidentally we make mistakes. But you're going to be hurt. And if you hold on to your hurt, what happens? The wounds begin to fester. And what do? We begin to create ammunition. I've got ammunition. You got holsters. Boom. You ever seen the Predator, man? When they were chasing, they were going up. Boom, boom. He had it everywhere. Oh, we have conflict. You said I did that. Chop, boom. Woo! Throw the grenade. Check that out. You did that. You're like, oh, man, I did do that. Well, you did this. Chop, bazooka. Boom. You did that. Everything we do when it comes to forgiveness, we hold on to these things because we want to use them later on. We want to balance out the score whenever we did something. And Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 13, for those that were needing some Bible in here, 1 Corinthians 13, he says that love, if you want love in your marriage, it does not keep score. If you want love in your relationships, it does not hold on to ammunition. It does not keep score. Today we're going to look at a marriage makeover. And for those of you who are in here who need it, this is your chance today to say, yes, let's do this together. You ever seen the talk shows when they bring someone on and they do the beauty makeover? They show you here they are first. I know you have. Don't act like you don't watch those shows, You see the beauty makeover and then you're thumbing through like, man, I wonder what is he going to look like afterwards? And they bring them out and you're like, oh my goodness. Look at the makeover they did on that guy. Man, he is just good looking. How do I do that? Or they take the girl and you're like, no way, man. She's ugly. They ain't doing nothing with her. Bring her out, made over. Wow. She's pretty. How did they do that? Well, the key to a good makeover, and most of you know this, and Maury Povich told me, the key to a good makeover is knowing what to do with what you've got. You can't work with something you don't have. And as we're talking about a marriage makeover today, how do you make God's most out of what you have right now? 5 things. Look at the first one. How do we transform a marriage? How do we have a marriage makeover? If you want this for you, then follow along with me today. We accept responsibility for our actions. We accept responsibility for our own actions first. It is straight from the Bible. Galatians, Paul speaking to all of them who thought they had no problems. He said, listen, each person must be responsible for himself. Each person. You can't control your spouse's actions. You can't control your spouse's attitudes, but you can control yours. That means that you're going to take responsibility, that I'm going to take responsibility for my marriage. I'm not going to start blaming other people. I'm going to be responsible for my part of the problem. That means stop having the pity party about your marriage, my poor marriage. Stop comparing your spouse to other people. If you're doing that, you've got to stop it. It's what kills marriages. That is the enemy's playground of comparing. Don't blame them. You stop dreaming and fantasizing. If I've only married this person on Facebook who I knew in 3rd grade, boy, they turned out okay. If I would have married them, my life would be better. It's a waste of time. You cannot fix your marriage if you're always fixing blame. You cannot have a beautiful, great marriage if you're always denying and defending. I had a pastor tell me once, and this was some of the best advice I ever heard, that the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence, and the grass is not greener on your side of the fence. The grass is greener where you water and you weed. And I want to tell you about your own marriage today. As you're looking over the fence like Wilson, and you're thinking that grass is better, and you're looking at yours, no, your grass needs to be watered, and it needs to be weeded. I think we know that how that happens is that we tackle one problem at a time. How many of you can pull all the weeds from your yard at one time? You start on a section and you say, let's start right there. You tackle one problem. If you're a money person and you know of Dave Ramsey, he has what we call the debt snowball, doesn't he? He says, take the least amount and finish that out first. How about the marriage snowball? Let's just start with the least thing. Let's work on that together. Let's team up and beat that thing together instead of splitting apart and fighting it. Beat up the problem together. But you have to accept responsibility. Number 2, believe that your marriage can change. If you're sitting there today and you're saying, I don't even think I have the belief that my marriage can change, I want to share a verse with you from Matthew 19. That Jesus says, I understand. I hear you. I hear you in your head right now. I hear what you're saying in your head. My marriage can't change. My marriage can't change. Too much hurt, too much struggles, too much this, too much that, too much unfaithfulness, too much bad words, too much this, whatever it is. And he's saying, okay, I hear you. All these words. Keep going, keep saying them. Get them all out. And he says, now open up to Matthew 19. And he says, humanly speaking, it is impossible. But with God, everything is possible. So as all these things are saying, it can, he's saying, okay, keep saying them. Because you're human. And humanly speaking, it is impossible. But with God, everything is possible. See how you are looking at your marriage. You may be looking at it saying it's from a human standpoint. It's on its last leg. From a human standpoint, it died 5 years ago. From a human standpoint, it's in its coffin. They're nailing the nails down. But we know that God himself is in the business of resurrection. Nothing is impossible for him. If you need change in your marriage, believe God for change. If you need affection in your marriage, pray for affection. If you need sexual fulfillment, pray for fulfillment. See, God finds a way. When we can't or we try other ways and we keep messing it up, God fixes. Accept responsibility for your part of the problem. Believe that your marriage can change. 3rd one, commit to doing whatever it takes. Commit to doing whatever it takes. There's some of us in here who call ourselves hard workers. I will work hard. I'm a hard-working man. Oh, man, I get down. I slave over the tiles. I do it hard. I'm a hard worker. But sometimes in our marriages, we're lazy. We want to tell everybody else that we work hard and that we can do this. But in our marriages, we can become lazy. And I want you to make sure you take note of this in a marriage. It takes commitment. It takes work. It takes cost. And you have to know this, and I love this, that a marriage is always either growing together or it's growing apart. Put it in your notes. Write it on your window. Put it in your mirrors. That a marriage is it's never standing still. It's either growing together or it's growing apart. Good marriages don't just happen. It takes effort. It takes work to be honest, doesn't it? Some of you are saying, it's easy to be honest. No, it doesn't take, it's not easy to be honest. Because it's easy to lie. It's easy not to face the truth. It's easy to not be humble and to be prideful. It takes humility in a marriage. It takes willingness to say, I was wrong. Please forgive me. Most of all, to have a great marriage, it takes time for us to do that. You didn't get into the mess of the marriage overnight, and you're not going to get out of it overnight. It takes work. And sometimes we say, what do we say? I'll just go on to the next thing and start over. But let me just tell you, the problem is going to find you. And you're going to have to deal with it. I was playing golf with my friend named Jake the other day, and he'll watch this online this week, so I'm glad. Playing golf with Jake, and he was in the sand bunker, and he couldn't get out 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 8 times. All right. Couldn't get out. Jake's pretty laid back. He's back there with your babies, by the way. And he's pretty laid back, but he comes out and he said, I'm ready. I'm serious. I'm throwing my clubs in the water right now. I'm ready to throw my bag in the water. And I said, Jake, you may be fed up, but I think we both agree that you throw the old bag of clubs in the water and you get yourself a new bag, that your swing still sucks. And I think most of the time that's golf speak. Your swing is terrible. No, but that's what we do. Oh, I'm gonna throw the old thing into the water. I'm gonna get a new thing. But let me just tell you, your swing still needs work. And for your swing to change, you need to work at it. The truth is it costs to have a great marriage. It costs a lot of time and effort and energy. But let me tell you today, it costs more to divorce. Ask anybody. Ask your closest divorced friends. Financial cost, emotional cost for you and children maybe. Relational cost, physical cost, memory cost. You leave a part of your person with that person when you leave. And if you got kids, you're never going to be totally free from that person. It costs far more. It costs far more worth the cost to save the marriage than it does to just chuck it. And God transforms marriages. He can do it. Number 4, I want to go down. What do? We deal with unresolved hurt. We deal with unresolved hurt. This is what we call forgiveness. You do this by asking forgiveness and by offering forgiveness. Our word from James 5:16 says, admit your faults to one another. This one is very tough. I know, for most of us. Very tough. You're headed in 2 different directions. But you both want forgiveness. Yet you don't want to offer it. And for any marriage to have a makeover, we have to deal with unresolved hurt, don't we? How many of you in here struggle with forgiveness? How many of you struggle with forgiveness? Yeah. How many of you struggle with lying? Yeah, because you're lying about the first one. Yeah, you struggle with forgiveness. Yeah. For those of you who struggle with forgiveness, raise your hand. Struggle with forgiveness. Struggle with forgiveness. I was in the airport yesterday and I brought a gift home for you. Yeah, and I can't give it to everybody, so I thought that I would give it to a few of you. All right? You struggle with forgiveness. Raise your hand. Struggle with forgiveness. Couples, here you go, Carlos. Take that. Put that on your kitchen counter. It says, for really big mistakes. And when you guys are ready to have a talk about forgiveness, let's just lay that on the table. And you say, I think I made a really big mistake with something. Raise your hand. David, here you go. Get you one. Get you one. Celso? Yeah, I'll hit you. That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, here you go. Here you go, Robin. Watch out. See? Empty seat. Gotcha. How about over here? Come on. There you go, Amy. Way back in the back. That'll kill you. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was note to self. Do not throw them to the back. You need to offer forgiveness to one another. We make really big mistakes, don't we? For any marriage, and I know what you're saying today, you don't know the mistakes. You don't know what has happened. God is in the transformation business. It's what he does. I don't need to know them. And then we need to offer forgiveness for the ones who have hurt us, don't they? We need to give it. We need to offer it. We need to take it. Colossians tells us to be gentle and ready to forgive. Never hold grudges. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Your marriage is not going to make it without forgiveness. Finally, the last one. Let's get support. Let's get help. Let's get support from others. I'm going to tell you right now that if you are on the marriage ropes today, and you're in there and you're battling and you're just trying to do your best, you won't do it by yourself. Your marriage won't make it if it's just you and your husband and your wife working on it. I know that sounds good. I know that sounds like, yeah, we're really working at it, but nobody else is supporting you. Nobody else is giving you good, sound, biblical advice about forgiveness and about your marriage. You won't make it. Why do you think we're in here constantly talking about community groups? Oh, because there's this place on the internet that if we get more in community groups, they send us a check. It's really awesome. That's a church joke, by the way, and only Jameson laughed. But no, that's not how it works in church. We want you to be in groups. We want you to have support. We want you, when you're about to have surgery, for someone to come up with and stand by your side. We want you, when your marriage is about to have surgery, that someone is coming up and standing by your side. That they're not giving you phony advice that they found in a Barnes & Nobles. That they're not just, enabling you. Saying, yes, you should leave her. Because that secretary is prettier than her. Are you serious? That's the people we don't need to have around us. You need people that say, come on, let's fight in this thing together. You need an older couple who you've looked at and said, they're doing it. Man, they're making it. How are they doing that? I'm going to ask him questions. I'm going to ask her questions. How have you made it for 40 years, 50 years, 10 years? I wonder if we have those people. Proverbs 19:20 tells us, get all the advice and instruction that you can. Drop your pride when you're struggling. It takes wisdom to have a good family, and it takes understanding to make it strong. Church, nothing is more powerful than a marriage that has been pulled back together by Jesus Christ. I want to tell you today that if you're sitting in the spot that you are in, and you are thinking it's going to be better if you just divorce, I'm going to tell you this today. No, there's not a marriage that is more powerful, that is more flowing, that is more dynamic than a marriage that was brought back together by Jesus Christ. You will look back on it and say, this was far better than I ever thought it would be. And I think that's what most of us are looking for, aren't we? I know most of you may be saying, you don't know my situation, Kenny. Thank you for your message. You're running over 10 minutes. You don't know it. Let's just get to lunch. For some of you, I've told you, I've looked you in the eye, and I said to you and your spouse, the things that you have struggled with in the past were pre-God. That was pre-God. Now, how about we move with God forward now? Because how I know you is you've been at this church, and you've been coming together, and you've been doing the best for your family by having your kids here. But all the stuff that happened in the past was pre-God. What are we going to do with God now? There's two opportunities I want to share with you today. That I think that if you are here today as a couple, as a married couple, or a couple that is engaged and about to be married, and we have a couple in the church, a few in the church that are going to be doing that, maybe it's time to do some things together. And we have two neat opportunities I want to share with you. In the back of your booklets, there is a place that says we are having a retreat. It's on November 16th. And I don't want anybody signing up today, by the way. Okay, if you're like, oh my goodness, I love it, let's go. I want to do all the marriage retreats. That's great. We can do that. I want you to take this home this week and make a commitment to pray about this with your spouse. Really, I'm serious. You may be ready to do it today, but there may be some of you that say, well, I don't do marriage retreats. I tried that once. It was the worst thing ever. Hey, I'm asking for you to take this home and for you to pray about it. This marriage retreat for couples, engaged couples, no kids. It is a time, it's giving you literally 3.5 weeks to make your arrangements for your kids for one day. Okay? It's a time to come together with your spouse, your future spouse, to dream, to pray, to team up together against others. Play games, to eat together, to renew together. It's only $50 a couple. I mean, if you can't do the $50 a couple, I promise you, you will be there. We'll take care of that. Get a cool little t-shirt. I mean, it's just going to be fun stuff. Sunday, November 3rd is the deadline. So don't rush. Take it home. Say, you know what? Let's do it. Why not? November 24th, I want to share with you something. It's at the end of the series. End of the series, we're doing a renewing of the vows Sunday. And it may be a time for you to say, you know what? When we got married, we didn't believe all this awesome stuff. When we got married, we thought the Bible was my grandpa's Bible that he gave for a wedding gift. He put it on the bookcase. But now this has really come alive. And now our marriage is something different. And I want to be married under that understanding. I want to say those vows and really mean it. Well, November 24th, we're going to do a renewing of the vows Sunday. I want you to think about it. I want you to pray about it. And if that's for you, you'll have an opportunity to sign up and let us know. Let's do a marriage makeover. Every one of us need it. Now, let's just be real. You may think you're a perfect marriage. Next week, you may be saying, I need a marriage makeover. It's time to get in this. Let's pray. God, thank you for having us here today, Father. Thank you for your holy word that teaches us what it means to resolve conflict in our lives, God, in our marriages, to forgive each other. Even when we make really big mistakes, God. God, be with us, Father, as we are making over our marriage. Let there not be any quitters in this room today. As people are watching this online, God, I'm praying that there are no quitters sitting on that couch together watching this. That there are no quitters, that, Father, they are ready to make that covenant with you, that they should work at it together and hear each other and communicate with each other. I'm praying that over each and every one of those. Praying for our new couples who are getting married, that this is soaking in. Father, that they know that there's work to be done. That they want to have a beautifully designed marriage. Father God, I pray for our tithes and our offerings, God, that people who have committed themselves to give to your kingdom, God, who have committed the tithe, Father, Father, you are finding blessing and favor on them, God, that nothing that they can quantify, God, but only you can in their life. I pray for that. Father, we love you and we trust you in Jesus' name. Amen.